For centuries, the sword has stood as a powerful symbol of strength, authority, and separation, particularly in the context of war and conquest. Yet when Jesus spoke of the sword of the Spirit, he was not referring to a physical weapon used in battle, but to something far deeper and more profound. This sword represents a hidden spiritual power, one that has the potential to cut through the illusions, deceptions, and false beliefs that keep humanity bound to ignorance. This is a power that few truly understand, yet it has been at the heart of the transformative teachings of Jesus all along. Most people are familiar with the image of Jesus as a preacher of peace, love, and compassion, yet his message also included a call to arms, not a battle against other people, but against the spiritual blindness that keeps us from understanding the deeper truths of life. He did not come to wage war in the conventional sense but to challenge the illusions that cloud human understanding. The sword he spoke of is not a weapon designed to destroy bodies, but rather one intended to dismantle falsehoods, separate truth from lies, and initiate a profound inner transformation for those who are willing to accept it. But what exactly does this sword mean? And why do so few truly grasp its significance? In the Gospels, Jesus makes a statement that, at first glance, seems to contradict his message of peace and reconciliation. In Matthew chapter 10 verse 34, he says, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword." How can this be reconciled with the teachings of a master who emphasized love, forgiveness, and turning the other cheek? The answer lies in understanding the nature of this sword. It is not made of iron or steel but is a spiritual weapon that works to cut through the illusions of the world, splitting apart everything that does not align with divine truth. To understand this metaphor fully, we need to return to the historical context in which Jesus was speaking. At the time, the Jewish people were eagerly awaiting a Messiah who would come as a warrior king, ready to liberate them from Roman rule through force and violence. But Jesus, with his radical new message, brought a kingdom that was not of this world, a kingdom that transcended earthly power struggles. His war was not against soldiers or governments, but against the spiritual blindness that kept people from seeing the truth. Through his words, sharp as blades, he exposed the hypocrisy of religious leaders and demonstrated that the true enemy was not external, but internal, the darkness within the hearts of people that blinded them to divine wisdom. The Apostle Paul further expounds on this concept in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 17, where he refers to the sword of the Spirit as the Word of God. This reveals that the sword is not a weapon used to harm others but to reveal the truth. Though the truth can be painful when it exposes our weaknesses and limitations, it is through this cut that true healing takes place. The sword serves not only to separate what is true from what is false, but also to bring about a profound transformation within us. It dismantles the layers of conditioning, fear, and false beliefs that keep us trapped in a cycle of ignorance. Jesus' message was so unsettling because it challenged the very foundations of the established systems of power, both religious and political. His followers, who embraced this sword, often found themselves at odds with the authorities of the time. Living according to the truth of Christ meant standing up to the status quo and refusing to conform to the false narratives that were being imposed on the masses. The simple act of embodying the light of Christ was enough to cause division, because truth always has the effect of dividing those who are willing to accept it from those who prefer to remain in darkness. This spiritual sword is not easy to bear. To live the truth fully demands difficult choices and sacrifices. It often requires us to break away from old beliefs, distance ourselves from the opinions of others, and even face opposition from those who do not understand the transformative power of this path. Jesus himself warned his followers that this sword would cause division, even within families, as not everyone would be ready or willing to accept the light he brought into the world. This creates a fundamental question. Are we prepared to wield this sword? Are we ready to face the challenges that come with following the path of truth? The symbolism of the sword as a spiritual weapon transcends Christian tradition and can be found in many other cultures and spiritual systems. In Buddhism, for example, the sword is seen as an instrument of wisdom that cuts through ignorance, dispelling the illusions that keep us from realizing the truth. This idea reinforces the universal nature of the message Jesus brought to the world, touching the deepest aspects of the human soul. The sword of the Spirit is a power available to all, but only a few possess the courage and fortitude to fully wield it. In today's world, where truth often seems subjective and easily manipulated, the need for this sword has never been greater. We live in an age of information overload, where much of what we encounter is distorted, aimed at shaping our perception of reality in ways that benefit those in power. The sword of the Spirit allows us to discern what is real from what is illusion, to stand firm in the truth even when everything around us seems designed to obscure it. But are we willing to face the difficulties that arise when we choose to wield this sword? Are we ready to confront the uncomfortable truths that come with it? The metaphor of the sword ultimately leads us to a deeper reflection on how we can apply this spiritual weapon in our own lives. How can we use it to transform ourselves and the world around us? The answer lies in how we seek the truth, how we allow it to shape us, and how we act upon it in our daily lives. It's not enough to merely understand the concept of the sword. We must be willing to wield it with courage and purpose. Throughout history, the word has always been seen as a creative force in many spiritual traditions. In Christianity, this idea is expressed beautifully at the beginning of the Gospel of John, where it is said, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." John chapter 1 verse 1. This illustrates the profound power of the divine Word, which not only creates but also reveals the truth. Jesus himself used the power of the Word to cut through the illusions and falsehoods that surrounded him. He was not concerned with following societal norms or pleasing others, but rather with revealing the eternal truths that exist beyond the realm of human-made constructs. As Paul writes in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 17, "The sword of the Spirit is the Word of God, a power that destroys lies and illuminates the hearts and minds of those who hear it." However, there is an essential aspect of this truth that we must understand. While truth liberates, it also divides. Jesus was fully aware that his words would not be easily accepted by everyone. He spoke not only of love and compassion but also exposed the hypocrisy, selfishness, and spiritual blindness that permeated society. "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free," he said in John chapter 8 verse 32. But this freedom comes at a price, one that many are unwilling to pay. The truth demands change, sacrifice, and the courage to abandon all that is false. The sword of truth not only reveals but also cuts away everything that is false, everything that holds us back from our true potential. It challenges the lies we tell ourselves and the false beliefs we carry, many of which have been ingrained in us since childhood. When the sword swings, everything that is not true begins to crumble. This is the process of spiritual awakening, a painful but necessary journey. Jesus demonstrated this in his interactions with his followers. He did not sugarcoat his words to make them more palatable. He spoke with authority, even when he knew his words would push people away. As we see in John chapter 6 verse 60, many of his followers said, "This is a hard teaching. Who can accept it?" And they left him. The truth, when fully embraced, can be difficult to accept, but it is through that acceptance that we are set free. In the end, the sword of the Spirit is not just a metaphor, it is a call to action. It is a call to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable or challenging that truth may be. Those who choose to wield it must be prepared to face the consequences, to walk a path of inner transformation, and to stand firm in their commitment to living according to the light of the truth. The sword is a powerful tool for spiritual awakening, and those who discover it will never see life the same way again. It is not just a weapon, it is a tool for liberation, and it holds the key to unlocking the deepest mysteries of existence. The power of words has been recognized for millennia, and it is often said that words can create or destroy, heal or hurt. This truth is clearly expressed in the ancient wisdom of Proverbs chapter 18 verse 21, which reminds us that life and death are in the power of the tongue. The words we speak, whether directed toward others or ourselves, have profound consequences. When we speak, we plant seeds that will grow, either nurturing light and truth or sowing darkness and deceit. This is not just a matter of external interactions but extends deeply into the conversation we have with ourselves. If we perpetuate false beliefs about our own worth, potential, or purpose, we create internal prisons that keep us trapped in illusions, making it hard to break free. Jesus, understanding the immense power of faith and speech, emphasized the importance of belief in the spoken word. In Mark chapter 11 verse 23, he speaks of a person commanding a mountain to cast itself into the sea. And that person, if they believe in their heart and do not doubt, will see it happen. This statement reveals a profound principle. What we speak and what we truly believe has the power to shape our reality. The sword of truth, which Jesus often referred to, is not only a force that affects the world around us but also one that operates within, transforming our thoughts and beliefs and reshaping our vision of life. But how, then, can we consciously wield this sword? The first step toward using this sword effectively is to seek genuine knowledge, knowledge that transcends the surface-level understanding we have been conditioned to accept. We should not approach sacred texts, like the Bible, as if they are just a collection of rules and dogmas. Rather, we should view them as living codes that require deeper exploration and comprehension. Often, the truths they contain are obscured beneath layers of misinterpretation, and it is up to each of us to seek the discernment necessary to uncover them. The second step involves practice. Knowing the truth is not enough, we must live by it. This means embodying spiritual principles, even when it puts us in difficult or uncomfortable situations. It means standing up for the truth, even when everyone around us expects us to conform to lies. It requires maintaining our integrity when corruption seems like the easier path, and choosing justice over convenience, even if it costs us relationships, opportunities, or comfort. The sword of the Spirit is not a metaphor for an abstract idea, it is a tool that demands action, courage, and commitment. The third step is vigilance. In a world flooded with misinformation, emotional manipulation, and empty rhetoric, we must remain alert. Today, more than ever, it is essential to develop a sharp mind, one that questions, investigates, and refuses to passively accept the world as it is presented to us. True wisdom is not a result of passive acceptance, it is cultivated through an active pursuit of truth and light. The sword of the Spirit demands this constant vigilance, for it is through this careful awareness that we are able to protect ourselves from the lies and illusions that surround us. Carrying the sword of truth comes with its consequences. As Jesus warned, truth divides. It is not a concept that can be comfortably embraced by everyone. His words caused division, even among families, not because he desired conflict, but because truth forces individuals to make a choice: either continue in the comfort of illusion or face the often uncomfortable reality and allow it to transform them. Not everyone is ready for such a confrontation, and so we must ask ourselves, are we ready to live in this truth? Are we prepared to face the challenges and difficulties that come with wielding the sword of truth? The symbolism of the sword is found not only in Christianity but in many spiritual traditions across the world. In Buddhism, for instance, the sword is regarded as a symbol of wisdom, specifically the wisdom that cuts through the ignorance that binds us. The sword of the Spirit, as envisioned by Jesus, is a universal tool that transcends cultural and religious boundaries. It represents a power that is available to all, yet few have the courage to use it fully. In a world where everything seems relative, where truth is often shaped and manipulated, the sword has never been more necessary. We live in an age of information overload, where the truth is constantly distorted. The sword of truth allows us to cut through this confusion and stand firm in our knowledge, even when the world around us seems to conspire against it. But the big question remains: are we willing to embrace this truth, even if it means confronting uncomfortable realities? In the next part of this exploration, we will delve into a crucial aspect of this spiritual battle, the invisible war against the forces of darkness. If the sword of the Spirit is the word of truth, then against whom are we fighting? What are the forces that this blade must cut through, and how can we prepare ourselves for this battle? Jesus warned us that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil, against principalities and powers that operate in the unseen realms. In Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12, he reminds us that the true battle is not one of physical conflict but of spiritual warfare, one that occurs in the mind, heart, and soul of each person. Throughout history, humanity has been aware of the existence of dark forces that attempt to lead us away from the truth. From biblical texts to the spiritual traditions of various cultures, there are countless references to these forces that seek to divert us from divine wisdom. Jesus himself faced these forces head-on, most notably when he was tempted in the desert. He did not resist with physical weapons but with the truth, using the Word of God to defeat the adversary. This is a critical point for understanding the true nature of spiritual warfare. The real battlefield is not out there in the world but within us. The invisible war is subtle and constant, often manifesting not in grand, dramatic battles, but in the small, daily temptations that challenge our resolve. It is found in the moral deviations that lead us astray, in the fears that paralyze us, and in the doubts that shake our faith. The adversary works not through overt displays of power, but by planting seeds of doubt, feeding our pride, nurturing our envy, and distracting us with trivial worries. Without realizing it, we can find ourselves trapped in a distorted version of reality. Jesus warned his disciples to watch and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. Matthew chapter 26 verse 41. This admonition reveals that spiritual warfare requires constant vigilance. Our minds are like fields, and every day we are presented with seeds. Some lead to light, others to darkness. The sword of the Spirit allows us to discern between these influences, rejecting those that take us away from the truth and strengthening those that bring us closer to the divine. So, how do we recognize when we are under attack by these dark forces? One of the clearest signs of spiritual attack is confusion. The adversary thrives on the distortion of reality, causing us to question what is true and what is false. Today, we see this in debates about morality, ethics, and spirituality, where everything becomes relative, and the concept of absolute truth is rejected. This is one of the most effective methods of spiritual warfare, convincing us that truth is subjective and that everything can be justified. Another sign of spiritual attack is fear, which paralyzes us, keeps us from taking action, and clouds our judgment. Jesus repeatedly told his followers, "Do not fear," knowing that fear is a poison to the soul. Only the truth has the power to dispel fear. Fear, however, is not the only weapon of darkness. Another sign of an invisible battle is discouragement. Many times, we may feel as though we are losing our motivation to continue on our spiritual journey. This feeling of fatigue is not simply physical, it is a draining of the soul. The sword of the Spirit is what strengthens us, renewing our connection to the source of all truth and restoring our energy. How can we protect ourselves in this spiritual battle? The first step is to recognize that this struggle exists. Many people live their lives unaware that they are being influenced by forces that want to keep them in ignorance. We must be conscious of these influences and actively reject them. The sword of the Spirit is our defense, and it is through our awareness, our discernment, and our commitment to truth that we can navigate this invisible battle and emerge victorious. The sword, as a powerful symbol, carries with it a deep sense of responsibility, action, and transformation. When we speak of the sword in the context of the Spirit, we are not referring to a mere weapon, but rather a tool that brings about real, significant change within us. The sword, used consciously, serves as an instrument of power that shapes the course of our lives. As stated in Proverbs chapter 18 verse 21, the words we speak hold immense power, either bringing life or causing death. This highlights a fundamental truth. Our words possess the ability to build or destroy, heal or harm, depending on how they are wielded. This power extends beyond our spoken words directed at others. It also includes the words we speak to ourselves. If we fill our minds with self-doubt, negative beliefs about our worth, or limiting views about our potential, we are, in essence, creating prisons within our own minds. These prisons can lock us into a cycle of fear, insecurity, and despair, making it extremely difficult to escape. That is why Jesus placed such strong emphasis on the power of faith in the spoken word. In Mark chapter 11 verse 23, he teaches that if a person has unwavering faith, they can command a mountain to be thrown into the sea, and it will be done for them. This powerful statement reveals a crucial principle. What we speak, what we declare with belief in our hearts, has the ability to shape our reality. The sword of truth, therefore, does not only act in the external world, it also operates within, transforming our inner beliefs and reshaping how we see and live in the world. But how do we consciously wield this sword, ensuring that it works for our good and the good of others? The first step in consciously wielding the sword of truth is to seek genuine knowledge. understanding that goes far beyond what we have been superficially taught. The Bible, for example, should not be read merely as a collection of rules or laws, but as a living code, a divine guide meant to be explored in depth. Too often, truth is buried beneath layers of misinterpretation, and it is up to each of us to search for discernment in order to uncover it. This means we must approach sacred teachings with a desire to understand them deeply, allowing them to guide our actions and thoughts in meaningful ways. The second step in wielding the sword of truth is to practice it. Knowing the truth is not enough if we do not live it. We must act in accordance with the principles we learn, even when it means facing difficult circumstances. We must live with integrity, telling the truth when others expect us to lie, standing firm in our beliefs even when the world encourages compromise. This is not an easy path, and it requires a dedication to living out the truth daily, not as a concept, but as an active, ongoing practice that permeates every thought, word, and action. The third essential step is resistance. In any battle, there are moments when the struggle seems overwhelming, when the temptation to give up feels insurmountable. It is precisely in these moments that the sword of the Spirit becomes our anchor, helping us remain firm when everything around us seems to be crumbling. Resistance means refusing to be swayed by the pressures of the world, refusing to compromise our values for convenience or popularity, and standing steadfast in our faith, even when the challenges seem insurmountable. Jesus himself demonstrated this strength in the face of adversity. He faced his enemies with unwavering calm, using the sword of truth, his words, his wisdom, his deep connection with the Father, as his weapon. He did not respond to insults with anger or to accusations with retaliation. Instead, he remained firm in his commitment to the truth and love, showing us that the true spiritual warrior does not give in to despair or let darkness dictate their actions. Instead, they continue to act from a place of deep inner conviction in the light of divine love. In today's world, the battle for truth is more apparent than ever before. We are surrounded by confusion, fear, and discouragement at every turn. People are lost, seeking answers in places that will never satisfy, deceived by empty promises and false hopes. Many are manipulated by the systems in place, which aim to keep them asleep and unaware. Yet the sword of the Spirit offers us the power to navigate through these deceptions, to avoid becoming another cog in the machine that seeks to keep us ignorant. But there is an important question that remains. Are we truly ready for this battle? Are we prepared to hold this sword and wield it in the right way? This is not an easy task. It requires courage, unwavering commitment, and a deep, resolute devotion to the truth. Many will choose the easier path, the one that requires no confrontation, the one that avoids difficult questions, and the one that doesn't demand deep, personal reflection. Yet, those who choose to follow the path of truth are the ones who awaken to their true mission, the ones who rise above the lies that seek to hold them back. As we continue this journey, we must explore a crucial aspect of this spiritual battle, spiritual discernment, and the role of the sword of the Spirit in helping us separate what is true from what is false. If truth is our greatest weapon, how can we ensure that we are truly seeing clearly? How can we avoid being deceived by the distorted versions of reality that surround us? What is the cost of living with discernment in a world that favors illusion over reality? Jesus made a profound and, at times, disturbing statement when he said, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword." Matthew chapter 10 verse 34. To many, this statement seems to contradict the message of love, forgiveness, and reconciliation that he is often associated with. However, when we dive deeper into the meaning of this statement, we understand that the sword Jesus speaks of is not one of violence or destruction. Rather, it symbolizes discernment, the ability to distinguish between what is true and what is false. The purpose of the sword is to separate, distinguish, and reveal the truth from illusion. The question we must face is whether we are ready for this separation. Are we still holding on to illusions? Or are we prepared to let go of the things that are not real? Spiritual discernment is one of the most important tools for anyone who wishes to walk in truth. In a world where appearances can deceive, where lies often masquerade as virtue and illusion disguises itself as reality, the ability to recognize what is true becomes a profound challenge. The sword of the Spirit, the word of truth, allows us to cut through this fog of deception. However, the truth is not always comfortable. It demands sacrifices. It requires us to abandon beliefs, relationships, and lifestyles that are not aligned with our true essence. Jesus was acutely aware that the truth he spoke would divide people. In his time, many rejected him precisely because his words were sharp and confrontational. He exposed the hypocrisy of the religious elite, confronting those who used religion as a tool to manipulate others. He revealed that following God was not merely about obeying rules but about undergoing a deep internal transformation. This revelation caused a rift. Those who were willing to accept the truth paid a price, while those who were not revolted against him. This same division exists today. Many who sincerely seek the truth feel isolated, even alienated. There are times when it becomes necessary to distance ourselves from people, environments, and influences that no longer align with our understanding of the truth. This separation is a natural and inevitable part of the spiritual journey. The sword of the Spirit does more than cut through internal illusions. It also pushes away everything that does not resonate with the truth. This process can be painful, as it often involves losing things that we once valued, but which were actually hindering our growth. One of the most challenging aspects of spiritual discernment is that it forces us to question everything, even the beliefs we have held since childhood. Many people live their lives adhering to dogmas they have never questioned. They follow traditions out of habit, without understanding the deeper meaning behind them. The sword of the Spirit cuts through this ignorance, bringing light to what has been hidden. As Hebrews chapter 4 verse 12 says, "For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." This verse illustrates the power of truth. Not only does it separate the external lies from the real, but it also works within us, revealing our hidden intentions and exposing our self-deceptions. This process can be uncomfortable because it forces us to confront aspects of ourselves that we have long avoided. But it is through this confrontation that true spiritual growth occurs. The greatest conflict we face is not external, it is internal. We all have aspects of our lives that we do not want to acknowledge. Little lies we tell ourselves, justifications we create to avoid change, and behaviors we know are harmful but cling to nonetheless. The sword of the Spirit forces us to confront these head-on. It shines a light on the truth without filters, excuses, or illusions. Facing the truth is never easy. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to grow beyond our comfort zones. Many resist this call because it forces us to question everything we thought we knew. But it is only by facing the truth, however uncomfortable, that we can truly transform and move forward on our spiritual journey. The sword of the Spirit is the tool that brings clarity, allowing us to cut through the darkness and walk in the light of truth. The sword of the Spirit represents more than just a concept. It is a powerful tool of discernment, action, and transformation. This process of transformation is not easy. It often requires us to change direction, abandon old habits, and even sever relationships that no longer serve our spiritual growth. However, this very process is what leads to profound spiritual development. Discernment gives us the clarity necessary to make decisions that are in alignment with the light of truth. It helps us to see clearly when something or someone is leading us astray. And it shields us from falling into deceptive traps disguised as opportunities or answers, which in reality are merely prisons in disguise. But how do we cultivate this discernment? How do we sharpen this sword within us, so that we can truly wield it in our lives? The first step in the process is to seek authentic knowledge, not passively receiving information, but engaging with it deeply through reflection, meditation, and careful testing. Jesus never encouraged blind faith. He urged his followers to question, seek understanding, and challenge the teachings they received. True faith, he showed us, is not about following orders without thought, but about recognizing and embracing the truth for ourselves. It is a personal journey of discovery, one that requires us to challenge the surface-level teachings we may have been given and explore deeper, more meaningful insights. The second step is to cultivate a direct, genuine connection with the divine. Practices such as prayer, meditation, and inner silence allow us to strengthen our spiritual awareness. Often, the truth does not come to us through logic or reason, but through a deep, Intuitive sense. A feeling in our hearts that alerts us when something feels off. This inner voice, the Spirit's guidance, is a powerful tool, but to hear it clearly, we must learn to quiet the noise of the external world. In a world filled with distractions, it is vital to create space for the voice of truth to resonate within us. The third crucial step is to take action in accordance with the truth. It is not enough to simply know what is right, we must actively live according to what we have discerned. Many individuals have the gift of discernment but fail to act on it. They recognize that they are in toxic environments, but hesitate to make the necessary changes. They may know that a relationship is unhealthy, yet lack the courage to walk away. They may be aware of destructive habits, but continually put off making the change. The sword of the Spirit does not just reveal the truth, it calls us to action. It demands that we take responsibility for our lives and make decisions that align with our spiritual calling. When we choose to wield the sword of truth, we are not just given clarity, but also a responsibility to act. We live in a time when spiritual awakening is happening on a large scale. Many people are realizing that much of what they believe to be true is, in fact, a false construct, a carefully crafted illusion. This realization often creates conflict, both within and outside of ourselves. It challenges everything we thought we knew, and it can be a painful and disorienting experience. But this is a necessary part of spiritual growth. The truth always causes division because not everyone is ready to face it. As we come to terms with this new understanding, we must ask ourselves, how do we use this discernment wisely? How do we share the truth without causing unnecessary harm or division? This is where balance is required. Truth must be shared, but it must be done so with wisdom and compassion. Imposing the truth upon others, especially those who are not yet ready to receive it, can lead to resistance and division. Jesus, in his ministry, never forced anyone to accept his teachings. Instead, he simply spoke the truth and allowed people to choose their own path. The sword of the Spirit is not a tool for oppression, it is a tool for liberation. It should not be wielded to judge others, but to illuminate their path. True discernment comes with compassion. It understands that everyone is at a different stage in their spiritual evolution, and it respects the timing of each individual's awakening. In the next part of our exploration, we will delve into how we can strengthen this sword within us. How can we prepare ourselves to carry this responsibility with grace? And how can we use the knowledge we gain to grow spiritually? If discernment is the key, how can we sharpen it until it becomes an unbreakable blade? A sword is not born strong. It must pass through the fire, be shaped with care, and endure countless strikes before it reaches its final form. The same is true for the human spirit. The sword of the Spirit is not only a symbol of truth, it is also a symbol of discipline, endurance, and transformation. To wield it effectively, we must first go through a process of forging. A process that strengthens and sharpens us so that the truth is not just an idea we entertain, but a living reality within us. But what exactly does this process entail? How can we strengthen our spirit so that we can carry the sword of truth with strength and resilience? Jesus was clear that following him would not be easy. He said, "If anyone wants to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." Matthew chapter 16 verse 24. This statement reminds us that the spiritual journey is not one of ease, but one that requires sacrifice, renunciation, and consistent dedication. Just as metal must be heated and hammered to become a strong sword, we, too, must undergo trials and challenges that will shape us, strengthen us, and prepare us for the battle against the illusions and weaknesses of the world. The first essential element in strengthening our spirit is unwavering faith. In a world where everything is questioned and relativized, holding firm to our faith can be one of the greatest challenges. We are constantly bombarded with doubts, distractions, and ideologies that attempt to convince us that spirituality is just an abstract concept, irrelevant to our daily lives. However, faith is the foundation of our sword. It gives us the strength to continue when everything seems uncertain. As Jesus said, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move." Matthew chapter 17 verse 20. This demonstrates that even the smallest amount of faith can yield transformative power, capable of shifting the very fabric of our reality. The second element is spiritual discipline. A sword will rust if it is not cared for. And similarly, our spirit will weaken if we do not nourish it. This means we must commit to daily practices that maintain our connection to the truth: prayer, meditation, scripture study, and deep reflection on our actions. Too many people treat spirituality as something they turn to only in times of crisis. But true spiritual strength comes from consistency. Just as a warrior trains every day to master their sword, we must exercise our souls so they become strong and unbreakable. The third element is courage, the courage to face trials. No transformation occurs without struggle. If we wish to be forged into resilient spiritual warriors, we must accept that there will be challenging times, trials that test our patience, faith, and determination. But it is precisely through these trials that we become stronger. As the Bible reminds us, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. James chapter 1 verses 2-3. Each obstacle, each setback, and each difficult moment is a blow from the divine forge, shaping us into something greater. The fourth element is self-awareness. To sharpen the sword of the Spirit, we must first recognize our own weaknesses. Often, we carry fears, insecurities, and limiting beliefs that prevent us from growing. The sword of the Spirit not only cuts through external illusions but also reveals the internal enemies that hinder our progress. Jesus taught, "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own?" Matthew chapter 7 verse 3. This teaching is a powerful reminder that before we can change the world around us, we must first transform ourselves. The fifth and final element is spiritual vigilance. In war, the enemy does not announce when they will strike. Similarly, the forces of darkness operate subtly, often catching us off guard. To defend ourselves, we must remain vigilant, constantly alert to the influences around us. By doing so, we can use the sword of the Spirit to guard our hearts and minds, always choosing the light over the darkness. In this spiritual journey, it is essential to understand that the sword of the Spirit is not just an external weapon, it is a force that operates within us, cutting through illusions and revealing the truth. The sword is a tool of transformation, and we must continuously sharpen it through faith, discipline, courage, self-awareness, and vigilance. By doing so, we prepare ourselves to face the challenges of life with strength, clarity, and unwavering resolve. The adversary offered Jesus all the riches and power of the world's kingdoms, tempting him to submit in exchange for worldly glory. However, Jesus rejected this offer, recognizing that such power is fleeting and ultimately illusory. He understood that true fulfillment and peace are not found in the material world. In Matthew chapter 16 verse 26, he posed a thought-provoking question: what does it profit a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul? This is one of the most profound spiritual lessons we can learn today. The material world may promise comfort, status, and security, but when we place our identity and happiness in these things, we become slaves to them. Does this mean we should abandon material possessions altogether? Absolutely not. The issue is not with the possession or use of material resources but with the dependency we place on them. True spiritual victory is attained when we learn to use the material things in our lives without allowing them to control or define us. Jesus and his disciples used money, wore clothes, and possessed various items, yet they never allowed these external things to govern their identity or decisions. They were in the world, but they did not live for it. They were not attached to material things in such a way that they became prisoners of those possessions. The sword of the Spirit helps us cut through this illusion of dependency, offering clarity and reminding us that material things are transient, fleeting, and impermanent. Everything material is subject to change. Wealth can be lost, health can fail, and youth inevitably fades. If our security and happiness depend on these things, we live in constant vulnerability, always at the mercy of external forces. But when we place our trust in the Spirit, we find a strength that cannot be shaken, one that transcends the fleeting nature of the physical world. This doesn't mean that material possessions are irrelevant or unnecessary. In fact, the physical world is an essential part of the divine plan. Material things exist for a reason and can be used to facilitate our journey through life. The issue arises when we make material wealth and possessions our primary focus. Jesus did not condemn prosperity or wealth in itself but warned against the attachment to them. He made it clear that it is impossible to serve both God and money. As stated in Matthew chapter 6 verse 24, money, in and of itself, is not evil, but it can easily become an idol when we prioritize it above everything else. When the pursuit of material goods becomes more important than the pursuit of truth, we lose balance and fall out of harmony with our spiritual path. So, how do we live in the material world without being enslaved by it? The answer lies in our consciousness. We must see everything in the material world as a means to an end, not as the end itself. Money can be used to help others, to build, to create, and to facilitate our journey. Health should be valued, but not feared as we age. Comfort can be enjoyed, but we should never become attached to the idea of comfort to the point where its loss causes us distress. The sword of the Spirit gives us the clarity to distinguish between necessity and obsession, between healthy use of material things and unhealthy dependence on them. One of the clearest signs of true spiritual liberation is inner peace. When someone has truly embraced the truth, they no longer despair in the face of material losses. This does not mean they are indifferent or careless about material things, but it shows that their emotional well-being is not governed by external circumstances. True victory in the spiritual life occurs when the Spirit governs matter, not the other way around. We can see this truth clearly in the life of Jesus. He didn't worry about material supplies, yet he never lacked anything. He performed miracles like multiplying loaves and fishes and turning water into wine. These miracles were not just supernatural acts, they were a demonstration that the Spirit holds the power to influence matter. However, the main message behind these miracles was not the supernatural act itself but the deeper lesson that when we live in alignment with the truth, matter adjusts to our needs. This is not a question of magic, but of living in harmony with the divine laws of the universe. This brings us to another important principle: trust in divine provision. Many people today live in constant anxiety, fearing the future and worrying about what might go wrong. But Jesus taught us to live with faith. He said, "Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them." Matthew chapter 6 verse 26. This teaching does not advocate for passivity or irresponsibility. Instead, it encourages us to trust that when we follow the right path, what we need will be provided to us at the right time. The sword of the Spirit also helps us cut through the fear of scarcity. The fear of lack is one of the most powerful tools used to control people. It forces them to stay in jobs they hate, to remain in destructive relationships, or to compromise their values in exchange for financial security. When we understand that true abundance flows from alignment with truth, we free ourselves from the grip of fear and can make decisions based on light, not fear. Another key aspect of the battle between spirit and matter is the ego. The ego is always striving for more recognition, more status, more guarantees. It is insatiable, always comparing itself to others, never satisfied. But when we allow the Spirit to guide our lives, we find contentment. This doesn't mean complacency or stagnation, but rather a deep sense of gratitude for what we already have, while still striving for growth and evolution. So, how can we practice this victory of the Spirit over matter? Here are a few essential principles. 1. Practice conscious detachment. Appreciate material things, but do not cling to them. If something is taken from you, trust that a greater purpose is unfolding. 2. Use material goods to serve, not to show off. The true purpose of material resources is to help create more light in the world. 3. Replace fear with faith. Whenever you feel anxious about the future, remember that the universe provides exactly what you need when you align with truth. 4. Avoid comparisons. Each person's journey is unique. What someone else has or achieves has no bearing on your own worth or purpose. 5. Practice generosity. When we give fearlessly, we demonstrate that we believe in the abundance of the universe. The sword of the Spirit invites us to an internal revolution. It challenges us to reverse the logic of the materialistic world and to live according to higher spiritual values. This is the true victory, when we no longer allow material things to control us, but instead, we control them with wisdom. When we reach this place, we become truly free. In the next part of our journey, we will explore a deeper topic, spiritual awakening and the end of illusions. If the sword of the Spirit frees us from the bonds of the material world, what comes next? What happens when we see the truth without filters? How does this revelation completely transform the way we experience reality? There comes a point in every spiritual journey when everything changes. When a veil is lifted, and we begin to see the world through new eyes. What once seemed crucial becomes trivial, and what was once confusing becomes clear. This is the moment of spiritual awakening, when the illusions that once held us captive fall away, and the truth reveals itself in its fullness. But how do we recognize this moment? And how can we prepare for it? Jesus often spoke of this revelation, telling his followers, "Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear." Matthew chapter 13 verse 9. This indicates that the truth is always present, but not everyone is ready or able to perceive it. Many people live their lives trapped in layers of deceit, distracted by desires, fears, and limiting beliefs. Just as someone who has lived their entire life in darkness cannot recognize the light until their eyes adjust. Many do not perceive the spiritual reality until they are prepared to see it. Spiritual awakening can come in many forms, sometimes as a sudden shock, such as a profound loss or life-changing event, and other times as a gradual unfolding, with the truth being revealed in layers. Regardless of how it comes, the essence of the revelation remains the same. We realize that everything we seek outside of ourselves has always been inside us. The truth is not some distant, unreachable concept, it has always been present, waiting for us to recognize it. When this awakening happens, our entire worldview changes. The mundane worries that once seemed so important lose their power, and our attachment to material things begins to dissipate. This is the beginning of a new chapter in the spiritual journey, a time when we no longer live in the shadows of illusion but step into the light of truth. When we begin the journey of spiritual awakening, the grip of external circumstances starts to lose its hold on us. We no longer live in constant reaction to the world around us. Instead, we start to act from a place of deeper internal awareness. The opinions of others no longer define us, and fear weakens, losing its power to dictate our decisions. This shift enables us to find peace and happiness not in external events, but in our connection with the divine. This transformation is precisely what Jesus referred to when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Luke chapter 17 verse 21. For many, this phrase has been taken merely as a poetic metaphor, an abstract idea that sounds beautiful but lacks tangible significance. However, for those who truly awaken, this statement becomes a concrete truth that can be accessed in the present, not some distant, unattainable place in the afterlife. The kingdom of God is not an external realm that we enter only after death, it is a state of consciousness, a perception of reality that we can access here and now. But this awakening doesn't come without a cost. Once we begin to see the truth clearly, we are forced to confront the realization that much of what we believed to be real was, in fact, nothing more than an artificial construct, an illusion carefully crafted by society and our own minds. This revelation can be deeply unsettling. Relationships may change, old beliefs may crumble, and we may suddenly feel disconnected from the world in ways we never anticipated. Many people who go through this awakening experience periods of loneliness, as they realize that most people around them remain trapped in the very illusions they have transcended. This is the price of truth, the recognition that what once seemed normal and unquestionable is, in fact, a prison of the mind. Jesus spoke about this transformative process when he said, "Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." Matthew chapter 16 verse 25. While this can be interpreted as referring to physical death, Jesus was also speaking of the loss of the false identities we build based on illusion and ego. Awakening requires that we let go of who we thought we were in order to discover our true, unshakable essence. This can be a painful process, as we are asked to surrender parts of ourselves that we thought were integral to our identity. But despite the pain, it is an immensely liberating process, as it frees us from the shackles of illusion. The sword of the Spirit plays a vital role in this process. It cuts through the bonds of illusion, separating truth from falsehood and guiding us toward a new, more accurate perception of reality. However, Not everyone is ready to wield this sword, as many prefer to stay in the comfort of familiar beliefs, reluctant to venture into the unknown. The awakening process requires courage to question everything we have been taught and trust in a truth that we cannot yet fully see. But once this awakening occurs, there is no turning back. A mind that has expanded can never return to its previous state. This presents us with a dilemma. What do we do with this newfound perception of reality? How do we live in a world that remains asleep to the truth? The answer lies in balance. Jesus did not isolate himself from the world. He lived among people, taught, helped, and healed. However, he never allowed himself to be consumed by the illusions around him. He understood that his mission was not to fight against the world, but to enlighten those who were ready to see. This is the attitude we must adopt after our own awakening. We do not need to impose our newfound understanding on others, but we can live as examples of the truth. By embodying the principles of spiritual awakening in our own lives, we can inspire others to seek the light for themselves. An essential part of this journey is humility. After awakening, it is easy to fall into the trap of spiritual arrogance, the feeling that we know more than others, that we are somehow above those who have not yet seen the truth. But this is nothing more than the ego masquerading as enlightenment. True awakening brings compassion, not judgment. It helps us understand that everyone is on their own journey, and that everyone will have their own moment of revelation at the right time. Our role is not to force others to see the truth, but to be patient, compassionate, and understanding. Everyone's path to awakening is unique, and we must respect that process. The next question becomes, how can we prepare ourselves for this awakening? How can we accelerate this process and become receptive to the truth? There are 3 fundamental principles to follow. 1. Silence and reflection. In the noisy world we live in, it is easy to become distracted. To see the truth clearly, we must create space for silence and introspection. Meditation, prayer, and time spent in nature help foster this connection to the spirit, allowing us to hear the divine guidance within us. 2. Vigilance and discernment. We must constantly question what we are told and examine our own beliefs, habits, and reactions. The truth rarely presents itself in a ready-made form. It is something we must actively seek and discover, learning to differentiate between what is real and what merely appears to be. We must learn to trust our intuition and hone our discernment skills to recognize truth when it presents itself. 3. Surrender and trust. Fear is often the greatest obstacle to awakening. We must learn to let go of our need for control and trust the process. True spiritual awakening requires that we surrender our desire to hold on to the illusions that we have clung to for so long. Once we let go of our attachment to falsehoods, the truth naturally reveals itself. It may come suddenly, in a moment of silence, or during an unexpected experience. But when it happens, everything changes. We are no longer the same. The journey does not end with this moment of revelation. Once we awaken to the truth, we enter a new phase of our spiritual path. From that moment on, we are forever changed, and we must navigate the world with our new understanding of reality. The sword of the Spirit is no longer just a tool, it becomes a way of life, guiding us as we continue to evolve. In the next part of our journey, we will explore what comes after this profound awakening. How can we live authentically, balancing our spiritual insights with the material world around us? What is the ultimate purpose of the sword of the Spirit once we have seen the truth? How do we carry this light to others without becoming isolated or falling into the trap of ego? Jesus showed us the way. He never forced his wisdom on anyone. Instead, he simply offered it to those who were ready to receive it. Our role, too, is to offer light without trying to impose it on others. Each person must find their own path, in their own time. The first lesson of this final phase of our journey is learning how to live in the world without becoming attached to it. Spiritual awakening does not absolve us of our earthly responsibilities. We still need to work, take care of our families, and engage with the world. However, the key difference is that we now approach these tasks from a new perspective. We no longer live as slaves to external circumstances, guided by fear, greed, or the need for approval. Instead, we begin to act from a place of consciousness and purpose. The second lesson is to practice discernment, to know when to speak and when to remain silent. After awakening, there may be a temptation to share our newfound truth with everyone. But we must remember that the truth cannot be forced. Each person is on their own unique path, and we must respect their journey. Just as Jesus spoke in parables to communicate different levels of truth, we must learn to adapt our message to the capacity of the listener. The third teaching is to act with wisdom and compassion, using the sword of the Spirit to bring light into the world without forcing others to see it. True awakening is not about imposing our views on others but living in alignment with the truth, offering our light to those who are ready to receive it. More than just speaking, the world doesn't need more empty spiritual speeches. What it truly needs are living examples, people who demonstrate the truth through their actions, who embody the principles of light in every aspect of their lives, without needing to utter a single word. As Saint Francis of Assisi wisely said, "Preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words." This profound statement captures the essence of what it means to live authentically. Our behavior, actions, and integrity are the greatest proof of the transformation we experience on a spiritual level. If we live with kindness, honesty, compassion, and integrity, we naturally inspire those around us to reflect on their own lives and choices. One of the key aspects of this journey is to stand firm in the face of challenges. The truth will not always be accepted or welcomed by others. Sometimes, we may face rejection, ridicule, or even discredit. This has happened to all who have brought light into the world, just as it happened to Jesus. But we must remember that the sword of the Spirit is not a weapon used for aggression. Rather, it is a tool of defense and protection. When we stand firm in our understanding of the truth, we don't need to respond with anger, resentment, or violence. The truth speaks for itself. Our role is not to convince others but to remain unshakable, knowing that light, in the end, always prevails. Another important lesson is the need to find balance between the spiritual and the material worlds. Many people, after experiencing an awakening, feel the urge to abandon everything worldly, seeking isolation in the pursuit of spirituality. On the other hand, some become so engrossed in spiritual pursuits that they neglect the physical, mental, and practical needs of their lives. Jesus never encouraged such extremism. He interacted with all kinds of people, attended parties, and lived a full life. He showed us that it is possible to be deeply spiritual without abandoning the earthly aspects of our existence. The key is not to become attached to these things, not to let them govern or control the spirit. We can enjoy the blessings of the material world, but we should never allow them to enslave us. The sword of the Spirit helps us cut through the false attachment to materialism, offering us the ability to discern what is necessary for our spiritual growth and what is simply a distraction. Furthermore, as we awaken, we need to have patience with those who are still in the process of their own spiritual journey. It can be frustrating to witness so many people trapped in illusions, repeating destructive patterns, and resisting change. But we must remember that everyone is on their own path. We were not always awakened, and there was a time when we, too, lived in the dark, just as we had our moment of revelation. Everyone will have theirs in their own time and according to their own readiness. Our role is not to rush others into this awakening, but to be patient and available to help when they are ready. We are called to share the light when it is asked for, not to force it upon others. This brings us to the final and most significant question. What is the true purpose of the sword of the Spirit? Why have we been given this knowledge? And what should we do with it now? The answer lies in service. The truth is not a privilege for a select few, but a light meant to be shared. Each of us has a unique role to play in this world. Some will be guides and teachers. Others will be healers and listeners. And still, others will simply live their lives with integrity and love, influencing those around them without the need to speak. The true spiritual warrior does not fight against the world. Instead, they fight against ignorance, injustice, and darkness within themselves. They do not impose their beliefs but inspire. They do not force others to see the truth but enlighten them. They wield the sword of the Spirit not to destroy, but to cut the ties of illusion, to bring clarity, and to protect the truth. And above all, they understand that this journey is not about themselves, but about the collective, the world, the community, and the divine purpose they are serving. So, the final question for you is, what will you do with this sword? Are you ready to wield it wisely, with humility and compassion? Are you prepared to carry this light even when the world around you prefers to stay in the darkness? The journey doesn't end here. In fact, it is only just beginning. Now that you've made it this far, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like you've wielded the sword of the Spirit at some point in your life? What truth has cut through the illusions and transformed you? Share your experience with us. Together, as we manifest this light, we will strengthen our consciousness and awaken others to the truth. If you want to dive even deeper into this hidden knowledge, click on the next video appearing on your screen now. In it, we'll uncover the brotherhood of light and the secret teachings of Jesus that history has tried to erase. We will unravel the mysteries of ancient wisdom and explore how these teachings can transform your life today.